So these are going to be the top 10 decks with the new nerfs, and I'm just going to jump into it with the first one being Imp Curselock. It was already one of the best decks, probably the second best behind Beast Hunter, and now that Beast Hunter is gone, it just makes sense that this deck rises up. Obviously, if the meta does shift over time, it might not stay that way, but as of right now, after the nerfs just went live, this deck has like a 55% win rate on Hearthstone Replay from Diamond through Legend. It's doing extremely well, and the win condition of the deck is early game aggro with the imps to try to close out the game, and if that's not enough, you can kill them off with curses over the top, which is very hard for the opponent to actually deal with. So the next deck on the list is going to be Naga Priest, and it's a deck that I personally don't like very much at all, but I cannot dispute the fact that it is extremely strong right now. The idea behind this deck is to basically just play Radiant Elemental around turn 5 or 6, play a ton of spells, then bless it, and then Boon of the Ascended it, so you can get two roughly like 16, 18 minions out on the board. That's about the stats you'll probably end up having, and then you can finish off the game probably the next turn or two unless they have removal. If they do have removal, you can probably do this combo one more time with one other Radiant Elemental and one more Boon of the Ascended, but it's going to be less consistent. Overall, this deck can absolutely blow people out of the water really early on, and it's quite strong. So the next deck on this list is going to be just normal Imp Warlock. It's a very aggressive deck. You want to pump out as many imps and demons out on the board as possible and win the game in a couple of different ways. 1, Vile Library early. 2, Shady Bartender in the mid game. 3, Imp King Reform or Sire Denathrius in the late game. You don't need Tamsin or Blademaster Okani. You can replace them both with Piggyback Imps, so you have a couple more imps out there. And overall, the deck is just really good. It's like a 54% win rate, pretty cheap, pretty easy to play, and great for beginners. So the next deck on the list is going to be Big Spell Mage, which is one that I personally endorse. I'm 19-0 on it, and obviously this is an extreme outlier. It probably won't be that good for you, but of the videos that I've made, this is probably one of the most popular decks and the deck with the best results. I've had so many people come on my stream saying they're like 11-3, 12-4, a couple of people are like 10-5. Overall, very good results with this deck, and basically all you need to do for mulligans is Pelican Diver, Amplified Snow Flurry to protect you early, Deepwater Evoker to make sure you draw a big spell, Belinda, and Barbaric Sorceress. Every other card does not matter. You will draw them throughout the game and you'll use them when you can. If you have the coin or you already have a good hand, Mailbox Dancer is also an okay keep to get the coin to coin out Barbaric Sorceress early, but other than that, none of the other cards really matter. So the next deck on this list is going to be Fel Relic Demon Hunter, and the main draw of this deck is the fact that its worst matchup, Beast Hunter, was nerfed pretty significantly. So with its worst matchup being nerfed and the fact that this deck was already pretty good, it definitely deserves to be in the top 10 decks. The idea behind this deck is you want to try to win the game with either A, the relics, or B, a late game win condition, whether it be Kurtrus, Xylag, Artificer, or late game Jace, which if you've played enough Fel spells can do somewhere between 12 to 16 damage to the opponent's face, not to mention potentially double activating with Bran. This deck has actually proven to be pretty good. I think I am 7-3 with it right now. No, I'm actually 8-2 with it right now, which is pretty good. Overall, I like the deck a ton, and I hope you do too. The next deck on this list is in a very similar boat to Fel Demon Hunter, in the sense that its worst matchup being Beast Hunter was nerfed, which is pretty good for this deck, because since it lacked healing, it was very bad against decks that could burst them over the top. Now, however, since the meta is more board focused with ImpLock as well as Naga Priest, you're able to control the board with things like Schooling, you're able to control the board with Primordial Wave, as well as some Rush minions and Freeze, not to mention later on in the game when you get Brucon and you can do 2 damage to the whole board over and over and over again. Overall, the deck just has some really good late game win conditions, survives a little bit better now because of the meta, and it has a very high skill cap because you have a lot of disruption cards like Theotar, Bolner, Bran, the Birds, and Mutanus, as well as Insatiable Devourer to some extent. So overall, if you like a higher skill cap deck, this is a great one for you, but if you're a little bit light on dust, this might not be the best one. So the next deck on the list is surprisingly Paladin, which is now a top 4 class in the game, which is a large bump from basically the last place class, and overall I am quite surprised. The deck is being pulled along by this one right here, Control Paladin, which basically revolves around ordering the court and getting out the jailer as soon as possible, as well as playing Cariel so you take half damage and fatigue. With the meta being so board focused, you're basically able to kill off their entire board, whether it be Naga Priest or ImpLock or any other deck that basically builds things on board with a quality city tax. Not to mention you could potentially discover more things with the Battle Viker as well as Venomous Scorpid. Put those things together and all of a sudden you have a really good deck that has basically an unbeatable late game with the Jailer and Sire Denathrius. So if you like Paladin and you like control decks, this is actually a pretty fun deck, and I would recommend trying it out. The next deck on this list is going to be the best one for beginners. Now, this deck is less than a legendary. It is currently priced at about 1,560 dust, which is less than a legendary, like I just said, and it's very simple to play. It's very aggressive, so you can crank out games and climb a lot. But the problem is it is pretty easy to counter if you're playing against things that have really good hard board removal. So once you get to higher ranks and people know how to deal with it, this deck will fall off a little bit. But up until Diamond, maybe even like early Legend, this deck will do absolute wonders. It can help you finish quests, earn gold, get some extra ranks. So if you're a beginner and you want to learn the meta and learn how to play the game, this is literally the perfect deck for you. You could not get a better deck. Near the bottom, we have Beast Hunter, which is still an extremely strong deck, don't get me wrong. I just think that after all the nerfs, it has fallen from about a 57 to 58% win rate down to about a 51 to 52% win rate. So overall, it's still very, very good. It's just not nearly as dominant as it used to be, and I think that the win rate will still drop a little bit more as time goes on. That being said, it's still very good early game. It's got really good late game cards with all the big beasts, and if you want to trade out some cards because you don't like the wild seeds anymore, you can dust them for full value and then put in a couple new cards, maybe a couple of extra beasts or a couple of extra early game minions to try to be a little bit more aggro. I don't know, but it's up to you. Beast Hunter is still pretty strong, but also very expensive. So the last deck on this list is going to be Control Warrior, which is kind of a personal preference. Dark Horse, I think, could be a lot better than people are giving it credit for, and the reason why is because not only do you have some of the best late game win conditions with the Jailer and Kazakusan, and you can pretty easily survive up until that point with the armor, but you also have some good deck interaction and removal. You have Theatar as well as 2 Call to the Stands, which can potentially cheese out some really important minions the opponents definitely aren't expecting, and then you have insane removal with things like Shield Slam, thing like Brawl, as well as Shield Jetter for the mid and late game, which can absolutely decimate board-based decks. So overall, this deck is surprisingly good. I'm not going to necessarily say it's the best thing in the world, but I do think it will sneak in there as a top 10 deck, so I want you to be ahead of the curve. And that's basically it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification button if you want to see more videos like this or gameplays of all of these decks going forward. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.